Music can make games more emotional, impactful, tense, grander than ever before. We really see music's impact on gaming coming to a forefront these days, especially with these massively open worlds that need grand orchestras to really drive home how grandiose everything is. On the other end of the spectrum, shite music can utterly fuck over a moment, a scene, a level, or even a whole game. But what about music that's incredibly impactful to the game, how we perceive it, the game's legacy, and yet it's barely used in the game? Valve has this weird thing they do. They will create some of the most complex, unique, fitting tracks and barely use them, or even just not use them in the game at all. I mean, for fuck's sake, they have a whole studio orchestra for what? Yeah, don't worry, pal. Put that funding into CSGO's promotional trailer music. TF2 doesn't need an update. We're surviving off challenge videos over here. We're good. So since Valve underutilizes its music, I thought I should take a look at some of the games I've played and discuss why it's so great. Valve actually utilizes music a lot more in this game than they do in their other games. Which is weird because you think for a survival horror game you'd want to keep the game mostly silent. But Left 4 Dead really isn't focused on being scary. It's more about being fun. So this rule about being silent to try and scare the player or build suspense takes a back seat. Now, the music in Left 4 Dead 2 is some of my favourite in all of Valve games. It is so good at fitting the tone in which it's being used, fitting the location, and just being good to listen to full stop. The music you hear most of the time consists of acoustic instruments, mainly banjos, pianos, and simple percussion like cajons. You'll also get some crunchy, distorted guitar from time to time. Now, Left 4 Dead 2 takes place in America. You start in Georgia and you end the campaign in New Orleans, Louisiana. The instruments used in these tracks are commonly found in southern rock or country music, and considering that you are literally in the deep south, the music just works, nothing feels out of place. The game even sticks to this as the game progresses. When you move into New Orleans, you get tracks that have a lot of brass in them, which works because New Orleans is known for brass marching bands. Not only does the music fit location-wise, it also works with the storytelling. Whenever you hear the acoustic instruments, it means that zombies are nearby, or are currently eating your asshole. The acoustic instruments are representative of the zombies. Although they're not as big, beefy, or impactful as the crunchy guitars, there's a lot of them, which makes them loud and impactful. On the other hand, the distorted, crunchy, I hate them fucking sissy libs rock music is representative of the survivors. The songs that use them normally keep it to a standard rock band arrangement. 2 guitars, a bass and drums. 4 instruments, 4 survivors. Although there's not as many instruments, the harsh distortion, snare and the bass lets the instruments have an equal impact to the acoustic instruments, just like the survivors do to the zombies. Now, you're probably saying, Samuel, you are overthinking this, you've gone fucking mad. Yeah, well, Ted Kaczynski's dead, so somebody has to be. But considering this won't be the last time stuff like this appears, I'm convinced these decisions were perfectly chosen by Valve. And if so, fair fucks to them, because that's a lot more effort than most people would put in for a survival horror game. Post-recording, Sam here. I just completely fucking forgot about the Midnight Riders concert, which literally uses music to, get you to safety in one of the levels. I don't know how I fucking forgot about that. Jokes aside, CS doesn't have music for a good reason. It's a serious competitive shooter. Imagine if you were trying to win a tense match for like a €10,000 prize pool and you had this shite in your ear.
Take the fucking shot!
Yeah, it wouldn't really work, would it? Also, one last thing. CSGO has music kits, which allows you to play custom sounds when your team wins a round. So, odds are you'll end up losing a game and then you'll hear... I think the CSGO devs just have a fetish for blowing out your fucking eardrums. Alright, back to the serious tracks, and this is probably the reason why you clicked on this video. The Team Fortress 2 soundtrack is utterly beautiful. There's no real other way to describe it. It's the only video game soundtrack I own physically because, one, I'm not an eek. I listen to real music like Blur and Blur and this one and this one. 2, I wanted a free item, and 3, it's genuinely a great listen. It takes all the techniques used in Left 4 Dead, cranks them up to 11, and then adds more on top. It's got the storytelling aspects, it's fitting for the time period, and it's really just good music. The Valve Studio Orchestra really works in favour of the soundtrack because TF2, it's set in the 1960s and it uses a style of jazz that was frequently found in spy movies like James Bond. It's reminiscent of a time from where Valve really stuck with the theme of a game other than the we have now. It also uses its music in a really representative way, like Left 4 Dead 2 did. Except this time, I'm not just being schizophrenic, I'm certain it was actually intentional. We can hear this in the tracks of Red Triumphs and Blue Triumphs. Now, if you were playing the game normally, you probably wouldn't even cop that these were separate tracks, because I fucking didn't. Now, they're almost nearly the same song, but Red Teams is played with a trumpet or some sort of brass instrument along those lines, while Blues is played with an electric guitar. Not only that, each song has a little solo section that's different from one another. Reds has this marching band type section, while Blues has this punchy drums that are reminiscent of 60s rock and roll. And also a flute for some reason. But these differences are representative of Red and Blue's teams in the games. Load into any of the early maps made for the game and you'll see Red's buildings are constructed mostly with wood, dirt and contains old equipment, while Blue's buildings are more industrial, being made of concrete and corrugated metal. The music uses these differences, with Red's track being more traditional while Blue's is more industrial and modern. Now, if you're interested in TF2 music, you've probably seen this video, which it's kind of clickbait. TF2 does use the same bass line in a lot of songs, but not all of them, and some of them are variations. But you can best hear it in the main theme, Intruder Alert and Playing with Danger. I also believe that Faster Than a Speeding Bullet is constructed using the same or similar notes. It's basically a motif that ties the soundtrack together and helps everything fit into the same world. I'm not great at music theory, but I believe motif is the correct word. A motif is usually a musical segment that is meant to kind of represent something very broad, in this case, the game of TF2. Now you're probably thinking of a leitmotif, which is more specific. It represents a character. A great example of a game that uses leitmotifs is Undertale. I know, TF2 YouTuber try not to use Undertale's music in their video challenge. Impossible! But Toby Fox does make really good use of leitmotifs to represent characters. But I refuse to play Undertale's music because I'm not a basic bitch. But the last thing I want to say about TF2's music, it's just beautifully composed. I'm just going to take a second and let you listen to the Meet the Medic song. It's just fucking great. Beautiful. I actually wasn't going to talk about Portal 2 in this video. It has one of the most expansive soundtracks out of all the Valve games, and it's actually used in the gameplay, unlike TF2 and I guess CSGO. But I had no idea what to talk about. The music is good, it's well composed, but it's not like TF2's. It's very digital, it's clean, and it shows signs of corruption. It fits the setting of Aperture Labs. They're minimalist labs which have a lot of technology in them. However, the labs have fallen into disrepair over the year, which is where the corruption sound comes from. But other than that, I had no idea what to talk about until a friend politely reminded me about something.
Sam, you're a fucking idiot. Portal has dynamic music.
Yeah, I completely missed this shit when I played for the first time, but yes, Portal 2 has dynamic music in the test chambers. Basically, what this means, as you add more aspects to the puzzle, another track is added to the soundtrack. For example, most chambers start with ambience or a beat. When you get close to something integral to the puzzle, like a laser, it adds a layer on top of that beat that is played in time with the beat that was already playing. So as you get closer to finishing the puzzle, the more complex and complete the music becomes. And each item has a different layer that gets added to the music, like lasers, cubes, turrets firing, even flying through the air. It's very unique and it's not something that's been done very often in games, so I do have to commend them for that. The music itself is very good, however I felt they could have used it a bit more in places. They also could have done something like add an acoustic guitar alongside the digital music to represent the foliage that's growing into this digital lab. But look, I'm no Johnny Greenwood, alright, that could be a shit idea. I just feel like it's not being used for its full potential. And that's basically how I feel for most of Valve's music. It's just not used to its full potential, aside from maybe Left 4 Dead. Like, in CSGO, yeah, you don't want music playing in your ear when you're playing a competitive shooter, that makes sense. But like, the game has one track, and you can only listen to it once because you'll be deaf the second time around. TF2 is the same thing, you don't want music so you can listen out for spies and such. But even a little jingle when the point is capped, or when the intel is picked up, could work. Also, music in MVM, that's a no-brainer. These compositions are great and I don't want to see them underutilized, even though I'm not one to actually sit down and listen to video game music. Even if you are somebody who listens to video game OSTs, am I going to make fun of you for it? It doesn't matter because music is one of the most subjective things out there, and it's one of the best things out there. Even if people say your music is bad, who gives a shit? It's good to you. I mean, I love the song Pop Is Dead, which is considered the worst Radiohead song, but I don't give a shit. I just fucking listen to whatever makes you happy. Except if you like this shit. If you listen to this shit, you should actually be hung from the gallows in front of a crowd. And the only reason I'm showing you this is because I had to hear it, so do you.